Welcome to the show. It's great to be here another week. We're going to be talking heavily about presidential politics as the first presidential debate of the 2016 general election is just next week. Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side, Donald Trump on the Republican side. Should be exciting. And with us today is going to be former national debate champion Chris Regan, who's also my law partner. So we'll be excited to have Chris here later on in the show. But first, we're going to talk about our usual things we talk about, our quote of the week, our legal tip, our sports person of the week. But we'll start with our community champion. And our community champion this week is actually a group, and that is the Sisters of St. Joseph. The Sisters of St. Joseph has been an independent congregation here in Wheeling since even before West Virginia was a state. They first came, a couple of sisters, in the 1850s and then officially a congregation in 1860. But the reason that the Sisters of St. Joseph are the community champion of the week here is because they do so many things and they've done it for so long. The sisters have been teachers here in our community. They've been nurses who've comforted people who need it the most. They've been community servants for so many charitable organizations. It's hard to go to an event in Wheeling where you don't see a member of the congregation there supporting the event or working the event or just doing what they can to be there, to help out, to let others know that they care. They've been an integral part of the Wheeling community for years and years and throughout the Ohio Valley. So the Sisters of St. Joseph, I want to say thank you to on behalf of all the people here in this valley who are so appreciative of the many things that you've done to help the kids, to help adults, to help people in times of difficulty. So the Sisters of St. Joseph are the community champion of the week here on the Jamie Bordas Show. Next, our quote of the week. And the reason I actually chose this week's, oftentimes I'll get suggestions from people. Josh Contragaro has suggested one. Becky Schilling-Rodacher suggested last week's quote of the week. But this week I chose it. And the reason is that this is my favorite time of year. Fall is upon us, and there is no time of the year that I enjoy more. So our quote of the week is, "Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall." And that actually comes from The Great Gatsby, written by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And I think there's a lot of truth to those words. You know, when you think about the fall, kids are back in school. It's a new year for them. You know, there gets to be that crispness in the air that makes you think, okay, things are changing. Things are new. It's new opportunity. And I just love the colors. I love things like Ogilvy Fest. I love things like Boo at the Zoo with my kids. And of course, being a coach and having been involved in football my entire life, I love football season, which is such a big part of the fall, especially here in the Valley. So I thought that this quote was particularly appropriate as fall is upon us, and I'm looking forward to all the things that fall has to bring, and including hopefully those changes in the temperature in the air, as it has been one brutal summer, and it's always my favorite time when it starts cooling down. The evenings are nice. Even taking my garbage out on Sunday nights I enjoy more when it's got that crispness in the air and you look up and see the stars. So I hope everyone has as great of a fall as I always have, and I hope this is a quote that maybe will resonate with some of you out there. Our legal tip this week: review nursing homes online and in person before choosing one. And the reason that's the legal tip of the week is that many people do have to make decisions about putting a loved one in a nursing home for care. They can no longer take care of themselves at home. They may be a risk to fall. They may be at a risk to wander off. They may have some health issues. They may just need rehabilitation. But one of the keys is choosing a nursing home, and oftentimes people may wonder, well, how do I go about determining which nursing home my loved one should be in? And there's some ways you can do that. First of all, online you can go to Medicare.gov, and they have something called Nursing Home Compare, where it will tell you the different issues that various nursing homes have had, whether it be maybe this particular nursing home has had issues with people falling. This one has had issues with people having bed sores or ulcers. This one has had a problem with people getting dehydrated, malnourishment, various things that can come up in a nursing home. And the government's website at Medicare.gov is a great resource to be able to go to, look and see how they rate the different nursing homes. And of course, you want to look for one that's had the fewest of these problems as possible. It's a difficult decision to make for people to decide that a loved one needs to be in a nursing home. So one of the other things that they can do is go visit the nursing home before you decide which one your loved one's going to be in. And the reason you want to visit is not only to talk to people, but look for signs while you're there. If there are people slumped over in chairs, kind of looking like zombies, you can probably get some sense that perhaps they're just over-medicating people to keep them calm so they don't have to deal with them. If they're needing attention or ringing buzzers or whatever it may be, they may be over-medicating people if you see a lot of people just slumped around in chairs. See if you notice any type of foul-smelling odor. That may give you a good sign that people are getting infections because they're not being taken to the bathroom on a regular basis. They're not being turned, and they're getting pressure sores and ulcers. So there are a lot of things that you can see, observe, use your senses when you're going through. Don't just talk to the people and take the guided tour. Look at what's around you. Use your nose, use your ears, use your eyes to see, hear, and smell what's going on, and that will give you a much better idea as to whether or not that nursing home is an appropriate place for your loved one to be. There are some great nursing homes out there, but there are some that are less than stellar, to say the least, and so you want to make a good choice. So that's our legal tip here this week. We're going to need to take a break. When we come back, Chris Regan, former national debate champion, will join me. We'll be talking about this year's presidential debate, what we might expect to see, and will the gloves come off like we expect? Stay with us.
So, how was your first day?
Long. So, Josh asked me about you.
Daddy's home. Go get him.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years. The Hardwood Specialists. DeNoon Lumber.
Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration has been restoring homes after disasters for nearly 4 decades. Through that experience, we present Panhandle Custom Homes, Kitchens, and Baths. We handle your entire project, from concept to completion, working with you every step of the way. From the budget-minded upgrade to a fully custom remodel, you can trust the Panhandle name. Panhandle Custom Homes, Kitchens, and Baths. Welcome home.
Welcome back to the show. In a presidential election that seems like it's been going on forever, it's now upon us, for real. The first general election presidential debate is next week. Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side, Donald Trump on the Republican side. Much anticipated matchup here in this debate. And we've got with us today my law partner and former national debate champion, Chris Regan, here to talk to us about what we might expect to see. Chris, thanks for being here on the show. Your much anticipated debut here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Jamie, it's great to be here. I can't believe this show's been going on so long already, and this is only my first time to appear here.
Of course, we did the Bordas and Bordas Legal Review, Chris, for a number of years on WLU-TV, West Liberty, and those folks up there did a fine show. So it is good to have you here because I've been missing you.
Well, memorable programs covering those debates, and a lot of opportunity for us to get into these issues and show clips after they happen, and now we can preview them before they take place for your viewers.
Yeah, and I do hope to have you back here, after the debate, so we can take a look at it and break down, some of the high points, maybe low points of those debates. But what can people expect to see with respect to these debates is something that I really want to get into here today. But before we do that, how do you get prepared to debate? I mean, that's something, obviously to win the national championship as you did, takes a high level of preparation, a lot of concentration, a lot of effort, hard work. The stakes couldn't be higher when it comes to a presidential election. So what do they do to get ready for these things?
Well, traditionally, and I think 4 years ago we covered the Romney-Obama debates, you see tremendously careful preparation by each candidate involved in studying their opponent's previous statements and their various policy positions. So you're going to want to know, if you were President Obama, everything that Romney had said about this, that, and the other, and then what his policy proposals were. Then you wanted to prepare your views and try to basically argue the case that you were the better person, that your policies were the better policies, and knock holes in the other side's case. And that's what preparation used to be. But this year, we have just an unprecedented situation because we have Donald Trump involved in this debate. And he's announced that he will not prepare. He doesn't have any interest in doing the mock debates, reading over a lot of papers, and preparing the way that presidential candidates have been doing almost since 1960. So that is why this is going to be, in my opinion, the most anticipated presidential debate and maybe one of the biggest television events for a presidential debate in our nation's history.
you mentioned Donald Trump not preparing. Obviously, he's had some debates. You know, he went through the primary process, a lot of debates. There may be more debates than we've ever had in that process. But one of the things you said is they typically look at others' policy proposals, but he's kind of a clean slate in some ways. You know, you talk about 4 years ago, you had President Obama, who had been a senator, who had been president for 4 years already. You had Mitt Romney, who had been governor, and they'd done a lot of things in the political world. But here you have Donald Trump, who has not been in politics before. So, you know, how does that play in here in terms of you have basically a novice candidate who hasn't really enacted policies before versus Hillary Clinton, who's been a senator, been Secretary of State, was First Lady, of course, but how do you rectify that if you're one of the candidates?
Here's how I would think about it, Jamie. You have a confrontation is essentially what a debate is. And it's so anticipated because these are the only times we see the presidential candidates directly confronting one another. So think about it like Rocky, all right? We saw Rocky in a whole series of movies. He fought Apollo Creed. He fought Clubber Lang. He fought Mason the Lion Dixon, right?
Don't forget the Russian.
He fought the Russian, Ivan Drago. But there was one fight, and that's like our normal presidential debates. You have Romney and Obama. Two different styles, two different people, but both boxers. But this fight with Trump coming in is like the time Rocky fought Hulk Hogan, all right? When he fought Thunderlips, the ultimate male. Rocky comes in ready to box, and Hulk Hogan picks him up and throws him out of the ring. So, you know, you're going to have a situation where you're wondering after the first commercial break, well, Hillary Clinton landed 25 punches and 3 of them for power, and Donald Trump knocked over the table, called the moderator a liar, and stormed off the stage. How do you score that? You know, that is the unpredictability that Trump has brought to the debates. That's why he ran over the Republicans in those big field debates early on. Nobody was ready for the way he acted. And so his unpredictability is the big X factor in this year's debates. He does not conform to the normal rules. So if Hillary shows up prepared to box, she may find out she's in a wrestling match.
Interesting analogy because WWE is in Wheeling on Monday night at West Banco Arena, so we'll have some wrestling and Wheeling on Monday night while the debates are going on. But you know, one of the questions that I always have with respect to these debates is, will anyone's mind be changed? You know, you've got so much attention now because of the media focusing in on these political races, especially the presidential race. Does everyone kind of already know everyone's position, and can you change anyone's mind through a debate?
I think that's a really good point to bring up, Jamie, because one thing that public opinion research and the campaign so far has shown is that Donald Trump's support is not necessarily linked to the issues he espouses or what he says. For example, if he says we're going to deport 11 million people on his first day in office, his supporters are for that. If he says I'm going to soften on that and we're only going to deport the worst of the worst and we're going to have a vetting of the rest, they're for that too. If he says we are never going back to the Middle East for something like the Iraq War, they support that. If he says we're going into Syria to knock the heck out of them, they're for that too. His support is personal, and it's not really tied to the issues that he gives. So what Hillary is going to have to accomplish in the debates, if she's going to win over Trump supporters, is show them that he is not the kind of person that they think he is, rather than showing that he is wrong about some fact related to healthcare or the economy or something. That isn't going to move Donald Trump supporters. In order for them to be changed in their mind, they have to see a different person than they have seen thus far, because their support for him has been very personal in nature.
We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue talking about these issues and others involving the presidential debate. Stay with us on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Every day, more than 70,000 puppies and kittens are born in the United States. Just one female can contribute more than 2 million offspring in 8 years. At the Tiffany DeLess Spay and Neuter Clinic, we are trying to help. We offer reduced-cost services to income-qualified families from all over the Ohio Valley. We understand that the cost of owning a pet can be overwhelming, and that stress multiplies when they do. Call the Tiffany DeLess Spay and Neuter Clinic, or visit us online to find out if we can help you.
Fighting for homeowners.
Fighting for workers.
Fighting for children.
Fighting for mineral owners.
Fighting for patients.
Fighting for policyholders.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Welcome back to the show. We've been talking presidential politics, specifically the presidential debate that will be coming up next week between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And with me is former national debate champion and my law partner, Chris Regan. Chris, we've been talking about the debates, and one of the things that you have to wonder is how much of an effect will the moderator have on the debate? You know, in this debate, just two people on stage, and Hillary Clinton's had a little bit of experience with that, you know, between the debates with her and President Obama 8 years ago, and the debates more recently with Bernie Sanders. But Donald Trump has mostly been on the stage with multiple candidates. How will the moderator weigh in, and also the fact that there's just two people on stage?
Yeah, I think both are going to play a role. We saw an incident, again, 4 years ago in the Romney-Obama debates when Candy Crowley from CNN contradicted Governor Romney on a point. I think it was related to the release of the videos in the aftermath of Benghazi, or something related to that anyway, and it was considered a big departure from some of the moderators' job done in the past. In other words, she kind of intervened and said, no, these are the facts, right to the candidates, and that was seen as a blow to Governor Romney. And so the question has been with Donald Trump, who says so many things and often contradicts himself, will the moderators take that role? Will they say, look, I'm not accepting your answer, you know, Mr. Trump. I'm not accepting your answer because that's not true. If, for example, he says he was against the war in Iraq before it started, when tape of interviews has come to light showing that he wasn't against the war in Iraq before it started, he came to be against it after it had been going on for quite some time. So if he tries to bluff his way through that, will the moderator push back? The moderator can do the same thing with Clinton, but she is much more practiced, much more traditional. So the statements she comes prepared to make are going to be parsed and compared against everything she's ever said before. So that's going to be easier on her, harder on Trump. So will Trump work the refs and say, look, this is unfair. You know, the moderator was tough on me, not as tough on Clinton, and try to get an advantage that way? That's definitely going to play a role.
What about, you know, these issues that each of them have had, you know, some of the more noted issues, you know, the Trump University issue, if you will, or scandal, or whatever you want to call it, and then also the email server when it comes to Hillary Clinton. Do you bring that up with respect to your opponent? Do you raise them, or do you wait to see if the moderator raises it? How do you handle that issue?
I think both will be able to shoot those things out there when they can, to try to force their opponent to respond to something that's negative about them and get them onto a ground that they don't want to be on. The one that stands out the most right now is this issue of Trump's charitable giving through his foundation, where it's now been discovered that apparently Donald Trump is settling lawsuits on behalf of his private companies with money from the Donald Trump Foundation that's donated for charity. So, like, if he gets sued for doing something he's not supposed to do, he pays them off with foundation money, which might be against the law, which actually is against the law if it happened. So he may get questions on that he doesn't want to answer in front of 60, 70, 100 million people in a television audience, because he could be in trouble for that. But Hillary has also, I mean, she had the 8 hours on the emails and 8 hours on Benghazi in front of these congressional panels. So I think that's just another day at the office for her, where she gets those questions again, she gives the answers she's been given. The people that don't want to believe it never will, but I think she's in a better shape because her scandal, if you call it that, is not breaking now. It's sort of baked in over the course of this year.
You know, you mentioned 60, 70 million people perhaps watching on TV. TV's an issue. You know, starting back in around 1960, when the presidential debate between President Kennedy, President Nixon, people that listened on radio thought President Nixon won. People that watched on TV thought President Kennedy won. There are a lot of things that go into these debates that are nonverbal and how people react to them. What are some of the things when you're debating that you may have to watch for, that you do, you don't do, that may affect how people react or perceive how the debate went?
Yeah, I think that both candidates have an interesting situation there, because Donald Trump's strategy has been based on dominance, both verbally and almost physically dominating his opponents. I remember when he did like the high fives for Jeb Bush, when he finally gave Jeb Bush credit for landing a joke in a debate. It almost made Jeb Bush look like he was kind of sucking up to Trump, who was always in the middle of the stage in his great big sport coat, sort of dominating over the field. Whereas Hillary Clinton is going to be the first woman that we've seen in a presidential debate. So the question for Trump is, does that kind of dominance behavior work on the American public when it's directed at a woman? And from Hillary Clinton, the point is nobody's ever seen this before. Nobody's ever seen a woman in our presidential debates. So how do you approach it in a way that people are going to be comfortable with? People generally don't like something that's new and different than what they've seen before. So if she's very tough on Trump, do people say that's unladylike? Or if she isn't tough on Trump, do people say, well, you're not tough enough to be president? There's a lot of catch-22s in there for her. So body language will play a role, because I think that if Trump tries to physically loom over or dominate Hillary Clinton, that's going to turn people off. But Hillary Clinton has a balancing act. She has to be aggressive enough to show she's tough enough for the job, but not so aggressive that she contradicts what people are ready to see from a woman. Because if her job here is to get votes, some of those people who might have those attitudes are votes she wants to get.
We got about 30 seconds till we need to get the break, Chris, but quickly, who wins the debate and why?
Well, I'm going to tailgate all day, first of all. I've never been so excited for a presidential debate in my life. I think Secretary Clinton has the advantage in preparation and in her skill, and I think that because she is so focused on winning this debate, and Trump just thinks this is another day of me being me, I think he is going to be brought up short by his lack of preparation and get really wounded badly in the debates.
Well, thanks for joining us today on the show. I appreciate your insight here on these debates, and we'll have you back to talk about them afterwards.
Hey, they said you couldn't do this show without me, but it looks like you've done it a few times.
Giving it a shot anyway. Stay with us. We'll be talking sports when we come back here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
At Progressive Bank, our loan process is unique. It's personal. Our local lenders ease your mind and help you get the loan you need and deserve. Progressive Bank. Personal bankers with millions to lend to local families and businesses. Come in, Ohio Valley. We're lending.
People always ask me what it means to be a dealer for the people. For the people is a simple idea. It means we believe that everybody deserves to drive a nicer, newer car. This belief drives the entire team at Robinson Auto Group to care more, to try harder, and to work smarter. Whatever's keeping you from driving that car you want, I guarantee we'll try our best to help you. We're Robinson Auto Group, and we're the dealer for the people.
Progressive Bank understands borrowing money can be a daunting experience. Our local lenders ease your mind and help you get the loan you need and deserve. Progressive Bank. Personal bankers with millions to lend to local families and businesses. Come in, Ohio Valley. We're lending.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports. Like always, we're going to start off with our sports person of the week. Our honoree this week is Wheeling Central golfer Kyle Wenzel. Kyle was able to capture the OVAC AA medalist honors by shooting a 6-under par 65 at Ogilvy's Crispin course, also leading his team to a Class AA OVAC championship all the while. A 6-under par at Crispin is a pretty impressive feat. Sometimes I'm happy to get 65 in 9 holes, let alone through 18 holes. People have seen me golf, can understand why, but a great effort by Kyle to go out there in a championship match and shoot 6-under par. Fantastic job, and so we want to recognize him as the sports person of the week here on the Jamie Bordas Show. So congratulations, Kyle, for accomplishing that. And good luck the rest of the season. Turning to other sports, the Steelers, now 2-0. Antonio Brown, our sports person of the week last week on this show, kind of held in check by the Cincinnati Bengals this week, but it didn't stop the Steelers from getting a big 24-16 win. Big Ben, had some mistakes. You're going to have some picks sometimes when you're a quarterback, but was still able to have a good enough game to be able to lead the team to victory. And the defense, another bend but don't break kind of performance, only giving up 16 points. Now this week faced the Philadelphia Eagles, and for those watching that haven't seen the Eagles play or haven't heard much about them this year, Carson Wentz, the rookie quarterback, is worth taking a look at. Coming from a division, what used to be 1AA, now FCS, which is Football Championship Subdivision School, North Dakota State, and going on in his rookie year to be leading the Philadelphia Eagles and playing so well is remarkable. But when the Steelers come to town, it may be a little bit different story, a little bit more to deal with that defense than maybe what he's had to so far. But this will be a task for the Steelers, having to go on the road. They've already been on the road once this year, of course, in Washington, the opener, but having to go to Philadelphia, which is always hostile to Pittsburgh, that rivalry, whether it's in football or whether it's in hockey, the Penguins versus Flyers, the two cities don't like each other when it comes to sports. So This is a big game for the Steelers because they've gotten off to such a good start at 2-0 to see what they can do this week. I like the Steelers again. I think they can win this game, but it's going to be tight. I'll take the Steelers by a field goal in this game this weekend. WVU, a big game also, speaking of games this weekend, against BYU, a neutral site, FedEx Field in Washington, D.C. for this one. You never know how teams are going to react on a neutral site game, a pro stadium, different atmosphere. You would think WVU would have the edge, being a little closer here to West Virginia. Maybe some of the fans can get out there a little bit easier than the BYU fans can. But BYU is one of those schools that are kind of a national school. You know, you've got Notre Dame, the academies, but also BYU because of its religious affiliation. You've got people over the country that root for BYU. So I think they'll have a crowd too. WVU, if they can get some points on the board early and get a lead, I think that they can hang on, but they need to get that early lead. So that's what I'd be watching for this weekend is can WVU get a lead early in this game? If they do, I like their chances. If not, then it could be a long day. I'll take the Mountaineers by 7 in this game. Ohio State's off this week after a big win out in Norman, Oklahoma this last week. I picked the Buckeyes in that game, as I did before the season started. I said they would beat Oklahoma in Oklahoma, but I thought they'd lose to Michigan at the end of the year. I'm going to stick with that. But they get a week off, but they're looking awfully impressive. So many freshmen, and they're too deep, yet they're playing so well. Urban Meyer just seems to do it every year. He was actually the receivers coach at Notre Dame when I was a student there. And I used to go to practices. I was the sports editor of the yearbook, so I had media credentials and I could get into practice. And I used to tell people, gosh, this guy Urban Meyer, what a fantastic coach. And my friends would look at me and say, who? And I'd say, Urban Meyer. You're going to hear things about him. And boy, you know, he went from Notre Dame to Bowling Green to Utah to Florida and now Ohio State and has had success everywhere he's been. So he's got that team rolling. Some other big games this week, and of course, Tennessee, Florida, always an exciting matchup when you get to the middle of September. And then also Wisconsin, who's number 11 in the country, at Michigan State, number 8, who just coming off that big win against Notre Dame, kind of ended any hopes the Irish have for the college football playoff this year. They were one of my picks to be in the college football playoff, but that's not going to happen now after 2 losses early in the season, and the defense just isn't playing very well. You have to play good, solid defense to be able to win championships, and they just haven't done it. So it doesn't look like this is going to be the year for them, but that Wisconsin-Michigan State game should be good, hard-nosed football banging around. And I want to talk about high school football for just 1 minute. People may wonder because the SSAC in West Virginia has released its ratings the last 2 weeks, and how can this team be rated here? How can this team be rated there? It's a point system. It's how it works. You get so many points for beating a team in your class. You get so many points for every win that a defeated opponent in your class has for its class or above. And so it's a point system. It's not a matter of subjectivity. It's all based on points on the record of teams you beat and what class they're in. That's how it works. That's the reason you maybe see the ratings the way that you see them. So when you get those ratings, you see them, don't get too worried. I mean, they do matter, but it's still early. So if you're looking at your favorite team, whether it be in West Virginia or Ohio, remember those points can change a lot as the year goes on, as the season progresses. Teams beat other teams and your team gets more points. Good luck to all area teams again this weekend. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next week on The Jamie Bordas Show.